My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratories, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. Just want to let everyone know we will be recording this webinar, and it will be available to view on both the webinar archive section of the DCL website as well as the CIDM website. You'll be receiving an email tomorrow providing you the link of where you can view the recorded version. With that being said, I'd like to introduce and hand it over to Joanne Hackles.
Thank you, Adam, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's joined us today. We're going to be talking today about trends in the industry for 2015. I know, I'm sure several of you have already taken part in this survey and are anxious to hear about the results. I think Adam at DCL and I have done surveys like this now for several years, and it's always interesting to see what's going on and how things might have changed. So we're really looking forward to presenting this information to you today. And I'm going to briefly just talk a little bit about our background. I know most of you know about Comtech Services, my company. We work with companies around the world to develop their content strategies, their plans, their training for people to really develop information effectively and to really increase the value of their brand by having good support for customers in using products, learning to use products, and being successful in troubleshooting and making those products more valuable. I wanted to point out to you, of course, that we have a big conference coming up in about 3 weeks now. I'll be in Chicago, Illinois with our team hosting the Content Management Strategies Data North America conference. And if you don't know about that conference, please consider joining us. I think it's going to be very, very exciting, and hopefully you've been getting some of the information that we've had out about who our speakers are and what the plans are. We have a couple of workshops coming up, a minimalism one and a content management strategies, both in June in the Bay Area in south of San Francisco. And of course, best practices in Florida this year, and then Data Europe back in Munich, Germany. So I hope to see you at some of those activities. Adam, do you want to give us a little background on DCL?
Sure. Just to let you know, you're still on the first slide. I don't know if you decided to move it.
No, actually, I've been moving slides. Are people having trouble seeing the slides? Because they've been moving along on my screen, at least.
I haven't received anything, but I see it on my, so it's probably just a refresh on my end. But for those of you who are not familiar with, yep, actually I have seen it now on a couple.
Should be on the fourth slide, DCL slide.
Nope, we're only seeing the first slide. Sorry, everyone.
Let me go out of the show. And try this again. What are you seeing now?
I'm still seeing the home slide.
Huh. Is that any better?
No, it's not.
Any difference there?
No.
I have no idea what's going on.
Do you want to switch the presentation real quick? We'll go to mine.
Yeah, sure. That's,
Hi, everyone. Just want to make sure, does everyone see this slide right now? Okay, great. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm not getting any controls.
Give me a second. Let me just give it to you then. You have keyboard and mouse access?
I don't, though. Oh, gosh. Well, why don't you go ahead and advance the slides, because
Okay.
I'm not seeing them at all.
Okay. So right now, just a little bit about DCL. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs today and in the future. DCL also spans across all industries. So Joanne, I'm now at the first slide of the survey.
Okay, so sorry about this confusion. I have absolutely no idea what happened because we were doing this earlier and it worked just fine. Anyway, wanted to start out just by giving you some background. Who responded to our survey? We had a really excellent response, and about what we see in most years. You know that we have about half of the people responding are technical communicators, and a little over a third are managers of departments. So we have a good mix of people focusing on what the content is and where that content is going in the future. We also had about 35% participation from information architects and 27% from editors and content strategists, and people then responded from lots of other parts of the organization. We had people from learning and training, from the support staff, from engineering and customer service. So we get a really good representation. But our two biggest groups, as you can see, are the writers and the managers. Okay, next slide. Want to also let you know that the technologies, again, has been pretty consistent over the years. We have almost 70% of our participation comes from people in the computer industry, software as the major contributor. And you'll see that there's some connection, I think, between that part of the industry that this survey represents and some of the results that we're getting. Telecommunications was the third highest number, and people in various engineering fields as well. Other responses came from people in the healthcare industry, in medical devices, in the semiconductor industry, machine industry, banking, aerospace, finance, and a lot of other individual responses from people in a really wide range of industries. So it's very interesting representation of a really broad focus for our industry, for information development industry as a whole. Next slide, please. The kind of content is also pretty much what I'd expect and the kinds of things that we've been seeing in other years. You'll notice, of course, that most people are providing user manuals. And again, that's what we would be expecting. But I think you ought to pay attention to some of the other kinds of content that people responding to the survey are developing. Embedded user assistance, that is the second major choice for people. Training materials. Video and knowledge-based articles, and I thought that those were really interesting and well represented in this, because those are things that we're looking at as a component of the total content strategy for our organizations. Mobile applications, again, becomes increasingly important, and people are indeed producing that kind of information for their customer mix these days, as people are looking for more and more online solutions for their information access. We noticed in the next slide, we noticed something really unusual, however, in this survey. For this time, in the very first time, we learned that 98.73% of our respondents told us that they plan to deliver content in the future as hard copy books. And we were very surprised at that. We were interested in finding out why that was the case. And the major reason that people noted in their comments was that printing costs have decreased dramatically in China. So it made the possibility of printing books, something that people hadn't been doing for years, much, much more feasible. And of course the librarians were applauding this decision, that this was going to make a big difference in the usability of content. And next. We also learned, and we're very surprised to learn, that people were, because they're printing in China, they were also looking at the advantages of, in the appearance of their documents in the Chinese printing styles as well. As most of you, I think, know, Chinese printing is actually very beautiful, and as a result, people who are shifting to printing their technical manuals are also going to print them in China and in Chinese, which was a very interesting decision. Next slide, I'll give you the results of this. I was really surprised to learn that experts tell us then that they do not anticipate any decrease in the usability of the information when it's delivered in this new method, or perhaps ancient method, coming to the fore again. And I think, Adam, we have a small poll at this point that we'll ask people to respond to in reference to this very unusual result that we've seen in the 2015 survey.
So the poll is now open, Joanne. And we're about 70% of the attendees have voted already.
Yes. Okay, can we show the results then? I think we've got a pretty good representation.
Sure, let me close it. And let me share it.
Unfortunately, many people are telling us that they won't follow the industry trends in this. That's very disappointing, but there are a few who I think understand what we're getting at. And the next slide, Adam. I hope everybody remembers this is April 1st. I did get through this whole thing, Adam, without actually laughing the entire time. Okay.
I told you you'd do a good job.
Thank you all, everybody. Hopefully this was a good April Fool's joke. Okay, let's go on then. The really interesting surprise that we found in the actual survey was that the majority of respondents, actually, about 80%, told us that they were using the XML editor as their first choice for authoring. And that was surprising. That was a new result on this survey. We had not seen that before, this kind of strong move to XML and to Ditto or to other XML-based solutions like DocBook or S1000D. And then another interesting point, I think, is that The next numbers they were for Microsoft Word, and we generally, consider that to be, while very easy, apparently easy to use, often an impediment to usability in terms of content creation. We had other representation, Unstructured FrameMaker, for example, various HTML editing systems, Madcap Flare, which seems to always spring up as a popular solution. Microsoft PowerPoint, obviously, for people who are doing training applications, Adobe InDesign for a few, and then smaller comments about applications like Level Help, Camtasia, AuthorIt, and other solutions that people were using. But this clearly was a survey responded to by people who have moved into the XML environment. We don't intend it to be that survey, but that's in fact what happened. So what did we learn from people who many of whom are really working in that XML environment today? Well, one of these is that the trend for declining focus on PDF output is continuing. And we saw in 2013 about 92% saying that they were publishing PDFs. That became a little bit less last year. And if I looked this year we asked the question a little differently to give us more of a fine-grained response. We found that people who were, that as few as 55% of the respondents were presenting more than half or 100% of their content as PDF. So many people who were responding to PDF at all were going to be publishing much less content as PDFs than they had in the past. And then the next slide, we'll follow this distinction with our HTML output. And as you might expect, especially if we have people in the XML environment or authoring in HTML, the trend toward more and more HTML output continues to be quite strong. And we saw a dramatic increase, of course, from 2013 through today. And I think that it continues to be a major form of publication that people are pursuing as they move content into the web, into mobile applications of all sorts. And a couple of new trends, continuing trends on the next slide. We found that the interest in dynamic delivery has increased dramatically. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing there is that we're getting many more platforms that support dynamic delivery, independent platforms that can be added on into a web environment without asking the IT organization to support it. In fact, I did a study of these new dynamic delivery platforms recently, and we are happy to talk to people about those platforms. You'll see many of them at the most of them, I think, at the CMS conference in Chicago in a few weeks. Dynamic delivery platforms are really gaining a lot of focus, and we're adding new vendors into that field very quickly. You can see the level of interest has gone up significantly. We also had a dramatic increase in mobile applications and mobile devices. I've differentiated between those because I think I want to look at groups that are actually presenting developing applications for the web and for devices, and then others who are porting their content to mobile devices, and you're looking at really significant numbers. We're also seeing this continuation of the increase in companies that are going to be publishing content through YouTube as videos, very strong, continuing to be strong, and also the strong, not increasingly as strong, increasing as strongly, a focus on wiki-type presentations of content. So these are, I think, the strong social media trends that we're seeing in the industry. So the next slide. We also ask, of course, and we're very interested in what you're hearing from customers. And we had some interesting results in this. And some of the things very similar to what we've seen in the past couple of years, but also some new issues. And that new issue is that, especially that first one. Because I asked it, are you hearing that customers are concerned about search? And, I think this is the ubiquitous problem, right? We can't find the content. The search systems don't work. There's no adequate metadata. We search on websites for content, and what we find are entire PDFs that we have to download and search again. So searchable content, being able to find answers to questions, is at the top of the list that you're hearing, participants in the survey are hearing, as what is really important to customers. Now, additionally, we of course know that people are very positive about receiving video instruction, especially if that video instruction is short, tells you how to do something, some discrete task. Mobile devices, of course, continue to be extremely strong. Embedded help, topic-based content, user-generated content. These are things that are less likely for customers to be asking for because they don't know a lot about it. So you have to be careful with the results there because, for example, when we look, actually study customers, what we hear from them is that, when they're searching for content, what they actually want is a topic, just like they want a video instruction. Where's the instructions to tell me how to do what I want to do? But they don't recognize that as topic-based content. They might actually be telling you on some kind of a general survey that oh yes, they like PDFs because they know what a PDF might be. They know what that is, but they don't know what these other things are for and how they work and what advantages they provide. So I think it's really, really careful to focus on something like, I need searchable content, than to ask customers whether they prefer a PDF or to even credit a vote that says they prefer PDF, because they may be voting simply for something that they've heard of or they don't want it to go away. Okay, the next slide, let's continue with this idea. Publishing choices today, as you can see, the PDFs remain strong today, and HTML is almost up there. Then we have embedded help systems, print. A lot of the print people who say they print manuals are for consumer devices or for medical devices, with groups that feel that they still have to, despite the changes in regulations, promoting electronic content, they still feel they need to deliver some print content with medical devices. But we see mobile devices, the e-books, wikis, content delivery, learning management. These are things that on the choices of what you're doing today are less prominent. Now, Adam, if we switch to the next slide, here's what people are telling us they're going to do in the next 3 years. And you see the shift to HTML from PDF. And that's a really strong shift. All of the numbers, all of those percentages have gone up for the other forms of delivery. Print wikis, those things have stayed about the same. But mobile devices, content delivered through embedded help systems, embedded into the interface, all of those things are really gaining importance in the content delivery environment. And so we've been seeing this shift for a couple of years now, and it's just getting stronger. And I'm especially interested to see that the HTML delivery have now outpaced the PDF delivery, and I think that that's going to continue. We're going to continue to see that, especially when people discover that there are really nice ways to develop and to dynamically deliver HTML content. Gives us this possibility of personalizing, customizing content for particular user communities. It's not simply saying to a user, well, here's this whole host of PDFs you can download. good luck, see if you can find what you need. That doesn't seem to me to be a viable choice moving forward, although it's an easy choice. And a lot of what I might hear in some of the comments was, well, we're doing this because it's what the webmasters asked for, it's easy for them to do, nobody's really thought about it, we're not really thinking ahead very much, we're just doing the same things. And I think that you're going to get eclipsed by rivals presenting content in better ways, in ways that people are really looking for these days. So we think I actually think the customers are ahead of us in what they want versus what we're producing. And that's the focus that much of the rest of this survey is going to help us look at. So next slide, please. So electronic publishing. We are continuing to see a trend toward electronic delivery of content. And 32% of our respondents, right, about a third, report that 90 to 100% of their content will be delivered electronically. This is what they're doing. Only 8% of the respondents said they don't deliver content electronically. And I think those are in some very special industry types. 33% claim that less than half of their content is in electronic form. This year, you know that. So we have a declining percentage of people who are saying electronic is not our primary form. It is really the primary form of more and more people. And, you know, I think we've been seeing that same trend for 20 plus years as electronic delivery becomes more viable. But we've really got to look at what kind of electronic delivery, because presenting a PDF to someone is really simply delivering the book electronically and not really focusing on how to get the best content into the hands of the customer in the fastest way possible. So let's see what some of our other options are in the next slide. The people who say to us that they're not doing this, they're not moving their content electronically, say it's not a matter of cost. You know, we've got the money. 76% claim that cost is an issue. And a quarter do tell us, yes, it is. You know, we don't have the money to move ahead. But let's look further on the next slide. Content is sort of ready. Now, what we found was that actually fewer people told us that their content was ready in the last survey. And I think it's interesting to say, you know, yes, you know, more people are saying that their content is ready and that this is really working effectively. More people tell us they don't know or that it isn't ready. And I think it's interesting to me to say, okay, you're saying it's not an issue. It's not an issue of money. It's not an issue of your content being ready. So what is it? What is it that's keeping you from pursuing new ways of delivering content, new ways that customers are asking for you to deliver content? So let's go to the next slide. Well, what are we learning? This is, I think, the most telling of the responses. We're not presenting content in new ways because we don't have the people. We don't have the time. We're spending all of our time doing things the old ways. Some do say, of course, there's insufficient budget. We saw that response. Others say that we have a lack of knowledge. We don't know how to do it. We need to learn more. And I think that there are lots of solutions for that problem. There are workshops, there are webinars, there are ways to learn. Certainly what our organization does in training people and providing conferences and webinars and workshops, and then also, of course, you know, consulting help to train people and get them to understand how to, you know, what is available and what they can do differently, and then how to do it differently. However, I think that major impediments, insufficient staff time, is really the major issue, certainly among 3/4 of people who responded to this question. And that's a really significant problem. You know, how do we how do we find the staff time, especially when we find many information development organizations are short-staffed. They're sometimes the very first to have the RIFs, the reduction in force, when companies are trying to save money. I think often we see extremely foolish decisions in terms of staffing. And I think that you do have to build a business case. In fact, one of the things we have focused on for a few years at the Fall Best Practices Conference is how to build that business case. We've had people from management groups, from industry, come and tell us, okay, what is it that we need to do to really convince management that this needs to be supported. And I think you have to show that customers are demanding and that you're responding, at least in some of the ways that you can respond, like social media, and that you think that, you believe, and you have the evidence to show from customer information that moving in a new direction is going to make a difference. And I think that's an extremely important business case to make. And I think it's one that senior management can respond to. I had an interesting phone call yesterday with an organization where the senior management have heard what the customers are saying about searchability on their website, that content is impossible to find, and that senior management group is willing to fund a research study into what's going on and how it can be made better, and then working with that team to make sure that they can move their content in the right direction. And there's a senior management group from their product development team behind the decisions, because they're hearing from customers that customers can't get answers to their questions. So let's look at the next slide and see what it tells us. I think it's important for people to know about what the competition is doing, because that makes a good argument when you're trying to get time and money and funding and support for an initiative to move content in these new directions. We asked people if they felt that their competition was ahead of them. And, the majority of people answered, hopefully with data instead of just a guess, that no, they didn't think the competition was ahead of them. It suggests to me that the whole industry is not doing a very good job. And that presents an opportunity, by the way, for you. If the competition isn't doing anything any better, why aren't you beating the competition by doing something more effective? It's really difficult for many products, especially in established fields, to differentiate themselves in terms of price or in terms of functionality. Is the software, my software, better than that software? Well, maybe so. But if you're delivering better information to customers, if they're able to use your product more easily, more effectively, you might be partnering with your user experience team in improving the embedded help or the content on the screen or the content that can be reached through your website, then you have a quite competitive advantage. Now, if you can say, yes, your competition is doing a better job, you better be paying attention to how to fix that problem. And then the 33% of people who don't know, go and find out. It's easy enough to go and see what's going on, except unless the content is behind firewalls, which is always a serious mistake because it just makes customers irate, and it really doesn't do anything for your company's secrets, I would contend. Go out and find out what's going on. Okay, and then what are we saying next, Adam? Shortcomings. When we ask people, okay, what is the real problem? You're saying you don't have enough time, or maybe there's not sufficient money, or you don't know enough. Well, what's going on with your content? Well, the response here is interesting because it really does match what the customers are saying. Customers are saying we need better search. We need to find things more easily. And folks, responding to the survey are saying the same thing. The search needs improvement. We know it does. We know it's bad. Well, that's a really difficult position to maintain, right? We know we're doing a really bad job, and we can't do anything about it. Well, get the customers on your side, everybody, make the changes that you need to make to the content. Topic-based authoring, metadata, all of those things are going to improve searchability. We hear also that content doesn't support what customers are really looking for, or customers want to be able to make their own PDFs, or we really need faceted search capabilities. Well, as I said, there are tools that can do that, that can look at the metadata and bring that metadata to the fore and make your content as searchable as the Amazon website, right? Everybody uses that as an example of faceted search. I can narrow my search by clicking on those things in the left column and find exactly what I want. And you're telling us customers can't find what they want, and they want videos, and they want topics, and they want better information on the website. And we're not doing those things with our current content. These are the shortcomings that people are telling us they really recognize with the content that they're producing. So our next slide. Major impediments to change. When I think people who are telling us that these are the problems that they're experiencing, they know it, they know they need to do something differently, but then we ask, what's stopping you? Of course, time and resources was the first one, right? We don't have the time, we don't have the resources. Multiple groups control the content delivery. All this content out there on that website doesn't come from us. Well, that means you need an enterprise initiative, a content strategy across the enterprise to get those multiple groups working together to improve content delivery, not working at odds. Current publishing tools don't meet our requirements. We have no reuse mechanisms in place. We still cut and paste. Our content is designed for print and PDF. We don't know how to do other things. And we're writing books, not topics. That's really sad. And yet I hear this. I hear groups who've been doing the same thing for many years telling me, well, we really like writing books. We like doing that. We know how to do that. We don't want to do these other things. We don't want to learn new things. We don't want to learn how to use new tools. We don't want to learn how to structure information differently. Well, that kind of recalcitrance, stepping back into the past, is going to take us at all forward. It's really not going to get us the support we need if our own teams are working against us. People certainly say they lack management support for restructuring content, knowing that it's not a matter of just converting content, because often the original content to be converted is in such bad shape. And I know Adam can tell you that at DCL they see a lot of those things. Some content comes along through conversion like a charm and smoothly, and others people finally say it's just impossible. This is just not what we need going forward. And of course that becomes an impediment too, because it's going to take time to restructure content. But what else should you be doing to make the content better? It's at least the new content going forward should be done in a better and a newer way. Okay, and the next slide. So what do we need to make that business case? Interesting responses. Just about equal, right? We're concerned that we need to change now or we're going to be left behind. That was what that question said. Customers are demanding information in new ways. Now, those are really important, and the percentages have changed a little from year to year, but they tend to be our most important issues. That customers need information in new ways, and we know we need to change, but it's hard. It's hard. We're using these things to try to make a business case. The The other issues I think are interesting. There's certainly a group of people who said no, 20%, they were not moving, we're not making changes. And it's often because they feel that they're being pressured in some way to keep doing things the same way or not being supported at all. Others are saying, well, our customers call with the support line. Well, look at the cost of a call to support. It's just enormously expensive to handle those calls on a one-for-one basis. And it's really, I think it's possible to make a really strong business case that says we can save time for the important calls that are really difficult to answer rather than the same thing over and over again. And I'll tell you, all the support people will tell us that it's really discouraging trying to answer the same call over and over and over again because people cannot find what they need. Others say that companies losing market share. Well, that's a time to make a business case that is going to be really persuasive. You know, that can we gain back market share by doing a better job, by helping customers learn more quickly, use a product more efficiently, more effectively, use more of the product than they might be using now because they've only learned to do 3 things and they're afraid to do anything more. It seems too hard to learn. Those are the things I think that can give you a competitive advantage today. Okay, next slide. So plans for the future. What are people, we're interested in finding out what people are planning to do if they're going to make a change. You know, this is not a question to be answered for the ones that say, no, we're not doing anything. But people who know they want to make a change and want to get help in doing that. Many of you want training. You know, about a third say, we want to get some training. And these are not mutually exclusive, right? So people will say, we're going to convert things and do everything in-house. We think, in fact, that we have so many changes to make that makes a better combination of things. But we need also to get training, and we need to get help in developing new delivery mechanisms. I know we've been working with groups that need to develop mobile applications or need to develop adaptive content that looks good on various sizes of screens, that need SCORM output for learning and training material. Those are things that are not always easy to develop in-house and can be either learned through training or as an outsourced activity. And we know that there are also a lot of people who say, we're going to use a hybrid approach. You know, some of this we're going to have to do in-house. And a lot of times we'll hear that when the original content is in really bad shape. Or you really need to move ahead with new content. And then they want some of the rest of the content that they need to move as necessary. They're going to be using services like the DCL's content conversion services. And the next slide. So what are people saying? What do we need to change? What are the things that we're hearing through this story overall? Well, we're certainly hearing about this compelling story to senior management. More people. We need more people. We need more time. We need to convince our people that change is really necessary. Well, I think if you take the results of this survey, Adam and I will have an article that will come out in a short summary that will come out in the CIDM e-news this week, in the April edition of e-news, and then I'll be doing the longer analysis of the data in the next week or so as a new article in preparation for the conference coming up. But how do you convince your staff that change is necessary? We've recently inaugurated, with a couple of other people in the field, a way of doing an analysis of potential resistance in an organization before a change happens, so that managers can be coached on how to better prepare for the resistance. Because I hear these horror stories from groups who say, well, we started doing this, we we made a lot of mistakes on how to introduce it. We encountered a lot of resistance, and now we're stuck. You know, we just don't know what to do because people don't want to change, and we've just built up this resistance because we didn't address the problems in the right way. And I think it is important to have a strategy and to pay attention to the change management initiatives. People are asking for help on selecting the right technologies. I think there's some interesting ways to do that. If you look at the CIDM website, infomanagementcenter.com today, and you look at the featured articles on the first page, in the center column of that first page, you'll see my study on the easy authoring tools that are now available, that the major XML authoring tool vendors have introduced. Things that look like Microsoft Word for people who prefer, amazingly enough, prefer Word as an authoring environment. Not me, certainly, although I do it all the time for things like letters and proposals. But helping that, or selecting that right technology, you'll find, you know, some really interesting information in that study. Looking for outside expertise, I know that Adam is happy to put you in touch with people, as am I. Okay, the next slide. We're ready for questions. So if you have questions, please type them into the question box on your screen. And Adam, you can let me know what some of the questions are.
Sure, Joanne. The first question that's come in was, how many respondents were there to the survey?
I think we had finally 240 or so.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check after this
I
webinar.
think that's about correct. Yeah.
So that's all the questions we've had so far that have come in.
Okay. Does somebody have any? Hopefully, type your questions in if you've got some. And we have these email addresses up here. Mark Gross and I are happy to take questions afterward.
And the next question that's come in is, any updates on ISO CM standard 26531?
Yes, right. It was just it just went through the official approval stage within the ISO Secretary's office. It was approved officially in December by a vote of the ISO members worldwide. It went through the Secretariat. I found out about this on Monday this week, and it has now gone to the final editing, which will mean that it will, as soon as that's completed, ISO takes forever to do some of these things, unfortunately. It will be posted for sale on the ISO site. But I believe that you can also, if you go to the IEEE site, I think you can buy it from IEEE now. I think it's $75. ISO, IEEE, IEC, that publishes these standards, all do charge. I think it's a very low charge, and it helps to support the development of the standards, besides what we all contribute as volunteers. So 26531 is approved, and it is out, and it will be available shortly for sale on the ISO site.
Excellent, thank
you. For those
you.
who don't know about that, by the way, I was one of the co-authors with Casey Jordan from JORSEC of this new ISO standard. It is a standard that does two things. One is that it provides you with a set of best practices and strong recommendations for going through the process of building a business case, evaluating tools, selecting tools, and then developing your strategy to implement a tool correctly and effectively. To implement, it's not a DITA-specific standard, but it is an XML-specific standard. That's half of the standard. The second half of the standard gives you a very thorough list of the requirements for an XML, a content management system that supports XML, supports the data standard, supports the docs book standard. So it gives you a really strong set of requirements. And what we're hoping, of course, is that CMS vendors who appreciate the importance of ISOs being ISO compatible, and your organizations that appreciate the importance of following ISO standards, like the 9001 manufacturing standard, will adopt these standards as part of their content, the functionality that they provide in a content management system.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. The next question that come in is, what resources are there for formatting HTML content and delivering to the web?
Oh, lots of resources, I think. Of course, the Data Open Toolkit, which is part of the Data specification support, Data Open Toolkit, which is included in most of the data editors, or all of the data editors. So if you get Oxygen or Arbortext or Oxygen or XMetal or some of the other authoring systems for data, they come with the Data Open Toolkit, and that has an HTML output. And you format that by developing a CSS, a style sheet for HTML output, which is pretty straightforward. But you can also use tools like WebWorks Publisher, for example, that has a toolkit. And I think there are certainly other products available. I'm pretty sure you can use Adobe if you're using FrameMaker. You can output for HTML as well. And Adobe FrameMaker supports the Data Open Toolkit as well in the newest versions, 12 and 13 now.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. The next question is, it seems a good approach might be to run a pilot/demonstration project rather than trying to, quote, boil the ocean, unquote. Mm-hmm. For example, convert all of your content at once. Absolutely.
I'm a great believer in pilot projects. For one thing, it gives you outcome, positive results, hopefully. Things that you can say, look what we did to your management. You gave us a little money and we did a really nice little thing. And how about now the next stage? I don't think you should definitely not boil the ocean. There's so much to learn, and I know, I've worked with DCL now for many, many years, and I know that they subscribe to the same thing. We do test content. We see what happens. We see what we get out the other end, and if it's really if things are working effectively. Sometimes we have to go back and make adjustments to the original content and before we do conversions. And pilot projects are a wonderful thing to do. Something we urge on to all of our clients around the world.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. The next question that's come in is, are people mentioning knowledge bases and wikis in their plans? Are they using one over another or planning to use them together?
Yes, I am hearing about those, and they certainly were as part of the responses. People mentioned knowledge bases and mentioned wikis. I think I have wikis in my data analysis. That, however, right, what we're also hearing about those is the lack of flexibility. Knowledge bases tend to work on, FAQs, right, or small snippets of text to respond to an open ticket or a customer query. And what we see happening in many cases is the proliferation of lots of content without content management. Everybody can put in a new piece of information. Nobody checks in many cases about whether that information is already there. or if the information that is there is out of date. Those sites deteriorate really, really quickly and make them become increasingly difficult to search. I think the same thing happens, of course, with the wiki environment. You're putting information out in chunks that are not reusable, are not easily updatable. It's text. Okay, I'm not managing that text in any way except by pushing it out to the customer. So I think these are solutions that people are backing into, a lot of it because it seems easy to do. I don't have to learn much. I can just type things. But getting that content under control, I think, is hard. And keeping it under control over long term is even harder. We're going to have some presentations at the conference about the use of things like wikis or wiki-like tools, and something about the pros and cons of those. We know groups are doing it, and we're looking at this as an easy way of getting things out quickly. But I think you got to watch out for easy.
Great, thank you, Joanne. The next question is, do you have the sense that many U.S. manufacturers are translating their content into Chinese or any other key languages / markets, maybe Spanish, maybe Portuguese?
Oh, absolutely. Translation is a huge business, and we know more and more companies, even companies now, let me make this clear, telecommunications industry, for one, has taken the position for years that they don't need to translate because everybody in the world knows English. Well, not the right answer to the question. So we're hearing from telecom, which I think is interesting, and from semiconductor, that especially with Asian languages, they do not have an English readership, and those clients in those countries are asking for those translations. So we hear people who say, we've never translated before, but we're going to have to. Or I had a conversation yesterday with a company where they said, we've never translated, but we're selling our product in more places. We're going to have to start translating, and gee, we better get this mess of content we have out there in a lot better shape before we start translating, or it's going to cost us a fortune, and very much so. So they're starting a project with us to fix the content, to figure out what is worthwhile, what customers are really looking for, maybe doing some customer analysis to try to figure out what should they be translating, and why their content is so difficult to search.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. The next question is, did respondents mention what percentage of content sourcing / curation they expect in future versus content development?
No, we didn't ask that question in this survey. We didn't ask for content curation. Oh, the clock is going off here. Excuse me. Either that or a bird got into the office. We didn't ask about content curation in this. I did a study last year that we published in October. These are available on the CIDM website. We did a study of content curation and user-generated content. You might find that to be quite comprehensive and quite interesting. Two major studies last year, one on user-generated content and the other on social media content distribution, using Twitter to get content out to people, for example.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanne. The next question is, any thoughts on how delivering help for mobile apps differs from more traditional help delivery?
Oh, yes. Depends, on whether how you're doing this. I think that you know, the embedded help, in many cases, is I think really difficult to use. We see people who, you know, if you go to the help system, you basically get the PDF and help form. Difficult to search, difficult to find things. They really haven't done context-sensitive help, or even context-sensitive help is screen-based rather than task-based. You know, I get help on this screen. It tells me everything that's on the screen. Well, not what I'm looking for, right? Task-based help. You know, if you're not doing context-sensitive help, embedded help, in a task-based performance support perspective, if you're presenting just the same old content, you're not doing something that is fit for any application, embedded or otherwise. If you know you're looking at mobile applications, and then you've really got to say, you know, what is the content that people are trying to find? You know, is this the best way to do it? Should they be within the application doing this? Could somebody be using the application and then have a, you know, an iPad or, you know, a tablet next to them that they're using to look up content? It doesn't need to be embedded and to be useful. So I think, you know, if you're doing embedded help really, really well, then I think some of the content may be suited for mobile applications. The other thing, of course, with mobile applications is we can do embed videos, we can do all sorts of things that a lot of times a company's help system doesn't allow. So those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Joanne. The next question that's come in is, would federated wiki be an answer to wiki delivery?
Say that again?
Sorry. Would federated wiki be an answer to wiki delivery?
I'm not sure I know what somebody's getting at there. Federated wikis. Sorry, not something
Okay.
I can, if they have more information, smallest federated wiki. Federated sharing, okay, something new.
Okay. We'll see if that person is still online and
okay.
reply. But the last question that has come in is, do you have strategies or resources you recommend to help with change management for the migration to topic-based authoring with data XML and CCMS tools?
Sure. That's something we do all the time. That is the focus of our consulting practice, is to help people make this kind of change. As I mentioned earlier, we use a change management analysis tool that gives us insight into what problems we might encounter in a particular situation. We provide training opportunities. We help people make good decisions. Let me talk about this a little briefly, and hopefully we've got listeners yet. One of the things that produces resistance to change in implementing, you know, topic-based authoring structure, the data standard, is that people are you know, have the whole thing thrown at them. So, you know, we get comments that says, you know, data has too many elements. The DTDs are too hard to read. Oh, you know, and I'm going to say, why are you reading DTDs? You know, that's not the way to learn this. Data has as many elements as people need. You know, we have people using data in all kinds of industries with all kinds of content. They need all kinds of elements, so we provide those. I mean, we just added troubleshooting elements, you know, because people are doing troubleshooting topics. But what we want people to do, what we help people to do, what we help them set up, is to go through the data standards step by step and looking at your content, saying, okay, we need this, we don't need that. We need this, we don't need that. And coming up with, before anybody gets to have to do anything, especially change-resistant people, coming up with your own information model. And then building templates in the authoring environment, whether that's a standard professional level editor or an easy-to-use editor that hides everything, building templates, constraining data, which means hiding from use, almost like the idea is almost like commenting out the code, commenting out those parts of data that you don't want people to use, that you don't need, so they don't see them. And adding on top of that, schematron rules. What schematron rules do is help you give people the right experience to say, okay, we built a template for a task. We want you to write a good task title. And we're going to have some instruction in that template that says, be sure that your task title begins with a verb. But we're also going to have potentially a schematron rule that will say, didn't begin with a verb, or it's got too many words, because we don't want our task titles to be longer than 12 words or something like that. And a schematron rule will generate an error message. It'll say you have too many words in that title, or it didn't start with a verb, or your short description is too long, or your short description simply copies your title. So information model, templates, company-specific information model, or team-specific information model. What are we using to data? Templates to support that in an authoring environment. Constraints to take away from view those parts of data that you don't need, people shouldn't be using, and we don't want to confuse them with it. Easy authoring environment with templates. And schematron rules. And all of that we build single-sourced out of our information model. We're going to be talking about that at a conference on how that's done. And we're also going to be offering a new workshop coming up in a couple of months called Configuring and Constraining Data. And that's what I'm going to teach people how to do. So, very interesting. I think that was the last question.
That was the last question, Joanne. So thank you very much for this informative webinar.
Wow.
And
thank you all for coming.
Yep, and please stay tuned for an email tomorrow with the URL to review and view this webinar in its recorded state.
Okay, and thank you, Adam, for putting all this together.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.